Hi everyone, welcome to Romance Stories. Before watching the video, please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. My childhood sweetheart is the female lead, but I am merely the villainous supporting character. No matter how hard I try, her gaze is slowly but surely drawn to the male protagonist. When she abandoned me once again to follow him, I finally understood it was time for me to leave. I checked in with the system to finalize my departure from this world. Host, you have 30 days remaining. The little system reminded me intimately. I nodded, acknowledging my fate. The food on the table had already gone cold. The birthday message written on the cake mocked me. She was the one who had promised we would celebrate every birthday together. Yet she failed to keep that promise today. Serafina and I grew up together as best friends until we eventually became lovers. This was the first time she had ever forgotten my birthday. She claimed she had very important matters to attend to. The date was shattered. I knew she had gone to be with that hero of hers. This has been happening frequently lately. I know I have lost. The plot is the plot. It is not something I can control. I quietly scraped the food into the trash and ate the cake alone. The frosting was sweet, so sweet it tasted bitter. This was the first time I had ever eaten an entire large cake by myself. At 3 a.m., Serafina returned. I closed my eyes, sensing her approaching me. "I'm sorry I'm late," she whispered. "I had things to settle today. I'll definitely make it up to you on your next birthday. The next time." But for me, there is no next time. I didn't say a word. I simply rolled over, turning my back to her. A heavy, suffocating silence spread between us. Suddenly, I clutched my stomach, curling up in agony. Serafina's anxious voice rang out. "Liam, what's wrong with you?" At the hospital, I was scolded by the doctor. "You're an adult," he snapped. "You know you have a sensitive stomach. Why on earth would you eat a whole cake in the middle of the night? What were you thinking?" I lowered my eyes and sat there obediently. I knew my mistake. I knew there wouldn't be another chance. I would never have another opportunity to eat a birthday cake again. As Serafina helped me walk out of the hospital, she suddenly stopped. "Is this because I didn't come home to celebrate with you? You ate the whole cake by yourself? Why would you use such a method? Are you doing this on purpose just to make me feel guilty?" "No," I answered quickly. "I told you. I had an urgent matter to deal with last night," she continued, her voice rising. "As an adult, why are you being so reckless and petty?" "I know," I replied in a very calm voice. Usually, this would have sparked a massive argument. I would have shouted about my hurt feelings and her neglect. But now, with the countdown ticking in my head, I found I no longer had the energy to fight. Our expressions were worlds apart. Serafina froze for a moment, looking at me with a strange, puzzled gaze. I realized that once I left this world, I would no longer be a puppet of the plot. Calculations filled my mind. There was no longer any point in acting like a resentful husband and picking a massive fight with her. I looked up, seeing my own silhouette reflected in her eyes. It was just me there, yet I knew that in her heart, there was already someone else. The male lead, Ethan. I was merely the obstacle on their path to romance. As Serafina became unable to let Ethan go, I had felt myself transforming into a different person. I had become irritable, paranoid, and possessively toxic. But that wasn't the original me. The plot had twisted me into an unrecognizable stranger, a design crafted by the author specifically for my character. The chasm between Serafina and me grew wider and wider until, after a violent blow to my head, I remembered the truth. I was the villainous male supporting lead who had transmigrated into this book. My true consciousness had finally awakened. "Serafina, I'm feeling a bit tired. I want to go home." "Okay, let's go home," she replied, visibly relieved. Serafina and I have known each other since we were 3 years old. We have been together for nearly 20 years. We are the most familiar presence in each other's lives. I used to think we would stay like this until the very end. But now, for the remainder of the journey, we must walk our separate paths. I spent the next 2 days recovering at home. Serafina was busy with work, but she actually took leave to stay with me. She has always been like this. When she chooses to be good to someone, she holds them in the palm of her hand with a warmth that is almost impossible to give up. It is her mercy and her curse. Lately, she has been gradually transferring that warmth to someone else. Usually, Serafina is lovely and sweet, but she is incredibly strict with herself regarding work. She used to never bring her phone into meetings, but now she is constantly distracted. In just half an hour, she checked her phone no less than 5 times. An unconscious smile played at the corners of her mouth. I watched her, feeling a sense of vertigo. How long? How long had it been since I'd seen Serafina smile from the bottom of her heart like that? A bitter ache spread through me. In reality, I couldn't entirely blame her. Ever since Ethan appeared, my temperament had changed drastically. I couldn't even count how many times I had fought with her. The fact that she was still willing to stay in this house was already a kindness. I looked around the house, piece by piece, from something as small as the chopsticks to the major appliances. Serafina and I had chosen every single thing together. Back then, we were overflowing with longing for our future together. We decorated this little house we loved with the utmost passion. But who could have imagined that, after Ethan appeared just a few months ago, everything would change? I can see it now. Serafina's thoughts are no longer with me. I was the one who personally pushed her out the door. Go to work, I'm fine now. She shot me a complicated look. I think, perhaps, she might still care for me a little bit. There are only 2 weeks left on my life's countdown. My physical condition is visibly deteriorating. Serafina sensed something was wrong and tried to take me to the hospital for a checkup, but I simply told her it was because of that cake I ate before. I claimed my stomach was still acting up and I couldn't keep anything down. I'll get better slowly if I just rest, I said. She didn't push further. The moment she stepped out the door, I could actually feel her internal excitement. Was it because she was going to see Ethan? I curled my lip, mocking myself. No matter how much I try to convince myself otherwise, these are established facts. I am watching the person I love deeply, gradually fall for someone else, and there is absolutely nothing I can do. The sorrow in my heart is about to overwhelm me. There isn't much time left. I want to say goodbye to this world properly. I went out to play with some cat food. There is a stray cat by the entrance. Originally, I wanted to adopt it, but it was always so guarded and didn't want to be confined, so I had to give up. I will never have the chance to see it again. I wonder if it will miss me. I fed it one last time, a silent sincerity in the gesture. The cat seemed to sense something. It crouched at my feet and continued to rub against me, acting anxious. I know that cats and dogs can sense when a human is ill. It was trying to warn me, but I knew better than anyone that I wouldn't survive. Even if I were admitted to the hospital, the doctors wouldn't find anything. Feeling the cat's kindness, my lips curled into a slight smile. Thank you. I'm okay. With only 8 days left, I can clearly feel the loss of my vitality. Strength is being drained from my body bit by bit. I've started coughing frequently, coughing up blood. I've kept all of this hidden. Serafina's mind is completely elsewhere, is not directed toward me at all. She leaves early and returns late every day. Though we live under the same roof, it has been a long time since we truly saw each other. Sometimes I wonder, if she knew I was dying soon, would she still abandon me like this? Despite my curiosity, I have no desire to tell her. When Serafina and I used to watch dramas together, I always thought the characters were so foolish. How could there be a misunderstanding that simply couldn't be voiced? I asked, but now that I am in this situation, I finally understand. There are some words I simply no longer have the strength to say. I gathered my savings and allocated them. My parents passed away unexpectedly years ago, leaving me with no one nearby except Serafina and my older brother, who has always looked out for me. I went to the bank to close my accounts. The clerk tried to persuade me otherwise. You should keep it open for now. If you want to reopen an account in the future, you'll have to provide so much documentation. It's not easy. I won't be able to use it anymore, I replied quietly. Even then, you still need the proper verification. It's almost closing time now, and we can't process this today. Please come back tomorrow. Thinking of the precious little time I had left, I pleaded, could you please wait for me for just half an hour more? I might not be able to come back after today. She looked at my gaunt, sickly face and hesitantly agreed. I gave her a gentle smile. Since I wouldn't live much longer past today, I whispered, I'm sorry for troubling you. As I walked out of the bank, I vaguely heard a small sob coming from behind me. She seemed like a gentle, kind-hearted girl. It turns out that even strangers can feel pity for me. I whispered in my heart, thank you. When I returned, I looked at the house. It was almost empty. In 2 days, I will have cleared out every trace of my existence here. Today, Serafina rarely had an early shift. It seemed she finally noticed something was wrong. Why is the house missing so many things? She asked. I want to buy new ones. I offered a random excuse. Then it's time to buy them. Use this card, she said, handing me a card. Inside is the bonus I just received. Since we're buying them together. I suddenly interrupted. Can you go shopping with me? Liam, I'm busy with work. She didn't even bother to look at me. I could hear the irritation in her voice, a silent complaint, as if she were wondering why I was being so foolish and demanding. If she had only looked up at me, she might have seen that the sorrow in my eyes was nearly overflowing. I took a deep breath. I understand, I said quietly. I'll go by myself. Serafina insisted she was far too busy for such things. Yet, shortly after I left the bank, I saw her dining with Ethan. The two of them were talking and laughing. The atmosphere between them was so perfect that there was no room for a third person to intervene. I suddenly remembered. We used to be just like that. She used to love shopping more than anything. But now, she couldn't even find a moment to go with me. An excuse that transparent is meant to sting. This, it turns out, is what it means when someone stops loving you. Every tiny detail serves as a reminder. Serafina doesn't love me anymore. Suddenly, I covered my mouth and coughed violently. Serafina frowned at me. I quietly balled up the tissue, the one stained with the blood I had just coughed up, and hid it in my palm. Why are you coughing? She asked, her voice laced with displeasure. Have you been smoking behind my back again? I shook my head. It's nothing. I had always listened to Serafina. I knew her rules were for my own good, so I had quit smoking and drinking a long time ago. I only reached for them occasionally when the pressure became unbearable, and she knew that well. But now, she didn't even want to believe me. Without checking to see if I was actually okay, she turned to walk away. Serafina, I grabbed her hand with a sense of desperation. I asked tentatively if one day, I'm not here anymore, would you be sad? She looked at me with a cold, serious expression. Liam, you're a grown man. Stop using these childish tactics. Do you still think this is a game of hide and seek like when we were kids? Serafina used to be so attached to me when we were young. She was like a little shadow following me everywhere. I remember once, during a game of hide and seek, I hid in a tree and accidentally fell asleep. Terrified, she cried so uncontrollably that it brought everyone running. Our parents scolded me harshly, but Serafina, her eyes red and swollen from weeping, stood protectively in front of me. Don't hit him, she wailed. She turned and hugged me as tight as she could. Liam, don't ever leave me. I'll be good. I won't cry anymore. No matter what happens in the future, please don't leave me behind. Okay, I had promised her back then. I promise. I traced the line of Serafina's eyebrows with my eyes. She used to be someone who loved to laugh. Why was she always frowning now? Does she even remember her former self? The girl who was once so terrified of losing me? I suppose she can't. Why is her memory so poor? She can't remember how much she used to love me, just as she will eventually forget all the things I did that annoyed her. Okay, I understand, I nodded. It turned out she wouldn't be sad at all. Strangers would shed tears for me, yet the one I loved wouldn't. It's okay, don't be sad, I told myself. How could a female lead ever truly break her heart over a villainous supporting character? Watching Serafina's retreating back, I said something in silence. Goodbye. Serafina was about to leave for a half-month business trip abroad. I quietly reached out to her assistant to make the final arrangements for her. On the day of her departure, I didn't see her off at the airport. I simply handed her the suitcase at the door. Goodbye. Serafina looked at me deeply. There was a complexity in her eyes that I couldn't decipher. In the end, she said nothing. She turned and left. Only when I saw the car speed away did I finally loosen my clenched fists. I couldn't stop coughing. For a moment, I actually thought she had noticed something was wrong while I was packing her luggage. I looked around the house that we had decorated together, piece by piece. The sorrow in my heart was about to overflow. There was still one last step to take. I woke up the smart home assistant. Master, I am here. Delete Liam's fingerprint access. Understood, Master. Liam's fingerprint access has been deleted. I grabbed my suitcase and walked out. The sky was misty. It looked like it was about to rain. A cold wind blew, and I suddenly felt goosebumps. Out of habit, I reached out to take Serafina's hand. But as I turned, I suddenly remembered she was away on business. It seemed my condition was truly worsening. I could hardly remember anything anymore. I smiled bitterly. Even if she weren't away, Serafina would never let me hold her hand again, would she? Because of her physical constitution, her hands and feet had been cold since she was a child. Especially during erratic weather like this, she would be incredibly uncomfortable. I was the exact opposite of her. I was like a small furnace. What I hated most was the way she would look at me so pitifully whenever her hands were cold. In the end, I would always give in, taking her hands and tucking them into my pockets to give her warmth. I was the one who promised to keep her hands warm for a lifetime. Perhaps, at this very moment, she is holding someone else's hand. I took one last look at the place where I had lived for so many years, then turned and walked away. By chance, I had moved in here during the spring. Now it was the first day of the new year. Two people had become one, and now that one was alone again. I returned to the small apartment I had bought. The countdown had 6 days left. I checked my chat history. Landon had sent me a flurry of messages. Little brother, did you win the lottery? Are you sure you didn't send these to the wrong person? He was referring to the limited edition figures and building blocks I had spent a long time collecting. Why did you give all of this to me? Don't tell me. You guessed right, I typed back. I hit the jackpot, so I had to share the wealth with my big brother. I realized I've been lying much more lately, even if my expression remained unchanged. Landon is a worrier by nature, but he didn't notice anything wrong with me. He chatted excitedly for a while before asking, "Are things okay between you and Serafina? You're the man. Be kind to her. Giving in once in a while is fine. Girlfriends need to be pampered to stay sweet." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I paused before slowly typing. "We're fine. Everything is great." "Yeah, Serafina loves you so much," Landon replied. "I figure it was just a little lover's spat. Go coax her a bit more." I felt a pang of discomfort. Everyone knew how much Serafina used to love me. But the person who said, "I love you" first was also the first one to let go. I felt a small sense of relief at this moment. Thankfully, Landon is busy abroad and can't come back. If he saw what I've become, gaunt, sickly, and unrecognizable, he would surely find me terrifying and strange. Would he regret being related to me? But regardless, my fate will eventually make him angry. With his temperament, once he realizes I lied to him, he will definitely want to pick a fight with me. But this time, I won't be able to fight him anymore. After ending the chat with Landon, a notification popped up on my phone. I went out and bought a heap of small gifts before heading to a nearby welfare home. Back when I was in university, I used to volunteer there frequently. After graduation, life became too busy, so I could only entrust others to deliver my contributions. "It's been a long time since you last visited," the director said with a smile. Then, his expression turned to concern. "Why have you become so thin? Has something happened?" I shook my head and spoke warmly. "I'm fine. I just haven't had much of an appetite the last few days." "Where are the children?" "I'll go see them." After distributing the gifts to the children, I pushed open a door in the far corner. Julian was inside, as expected. He was painting in silence. Even though a gift had been brought for him, he didn't come out to greet me. It was as if nothing in the world existed to him except the paintbrush in his hand. I placed the gift on his desk without saying a word. I simply sat on the chair beside him and watched him wave his brush. Julian has autism. He doesn't speak much and remains immersed in his own world. The only thing he loves is painting. When I first started volunteering, he was the first child I was responsible for. At first, he resisted my presence. Later, he allowed me to sit beside him and watch him work. We became close in this silent way. This was our only form of communication. The room was quiet, filled only with the rustle of the brush against the paper. "Are you not coming anymore?" Julian suddenly spoke. His dark eyes looked at me timidly. In all these years, this was the first time Julian had ever initiated a conversation with me. My fingers curled nervously as I looked into those clear, piercing eyes. My throat felt as if it were blocked by a ball of cotton. I couldn't say a word. I could lie to Serafina and Landon without a change in my expression, but I couldn't do it to Julian. "I know you won't come back," he whispered. "My mother looked just like this when she didn't want me anymore. She bought me so many new clothes and snacks. But she didn't say a word when she looked at me." My heart ached as I ruffled the boy's hair. "Are you married to Sister Serafina yet?" Julian asked suddenly. My hand froze. "How do you know about Serafina?" "She comes to see me every month," he replied. "She brings me small gifts. She also left a secret for you." Julian spoke as he pulled a painting from his drawer and handed it to me. The art style was clear, It was definitely Julian's work, but there were a few lines written in the corner. Liam, when are you going to marry me? Actually, I don't need to live in a big house. It doesn't matter how expensive the car you drive is. Don't push yourself so hard. As long as we are together, everything will work out. I wonder when you'll finally discover this secret. The handwriting belonged to Serafina. I traced the elegant script with my fingers, and I couldn't stop my eyes from reddening. Ghosts of the past. After leaving the orphanage, I wandered aimlessly. Julian had let me keep the painting, calling it his parting gift to me. As I passed a trash can on the street, I had a sudden, impulsive urge to rip those words to shreds and throw them away. But in the end, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I stopped and looked up. Without realizing it, I had walked near our old university. Without thinking, I stepped into a nearby restaurant. Years had passed, and the decor was much older now, but the crowd of students was just as thick as it had always been. Serafina's family was well off. She had been pampered since she was a child. During our graduation internship, she received her very first self-earned paycheck. It was only a few thousand, but she was ecstatic. She dragged me to this then newly opened restaurant and told me bravely to order whatever I wanted. Liam, I can earn my own money now. I can support myself, she had said back then. You don't need to be under so much stress. I tried to order the signature dish we loved that day. I'm sorry, sir, the waiter said, handing me the menu. That dish has been removed from the menu. You might want to try some of our other current specialties. It's still very delicious, I said, feeling a wave of embarrassment. It turned out that too much time had already slipped away. I stood up, intending to leave, but the restaurant manager stopped me. Are you Mr. Liam? I nodded, feeling a bit awkward. This is for you. The manager handed me a yellowed envelope he had retrieved from somewhere. I stared at it, not daring to take it. Our shop held an event back when we first opened, a letter to yourself 3 years later event, the manager explained with a nostalgic smile. I was originally supposed to mail this to you after 3 years. But a few days ago, Miss Serafina came here specifically to find me. She showed me your photo and asked that if I ever ran into you, I should give this postcard to you directly. I remembered it then. Back then, there was indeed such an event. Serafina had such a vibrant, lively spirit. She was always passionate about trying new and exciting things. She was persistent about us doing all the romantic couple things together. An activity like this was, of course, something she wouldn't let pass. I opened the envelope. There was only one sentence on the postcard. Hello, Liam from 3 years later. Have I become Mrs. Liam yet? It was written by Serafina. We were deeply in love at the time. After she finished writing, she insisted on swapping postcards with me, saying that in 3 years, we should see what the other had written. I flipped the postcard over. On the back, there was half a sentence in my own handwriting. Then I will wait for you. It turns out we really did love each other that much. The Cold War and the distance between us lately had made me almost forget our shared past, how much I had truly wanted us to be together forever. I took out my phone and began deleting the chat records from our university years, one by one. I tried to suppress my tears as I scrolled through the logs. All those expressions of love, recorded forever in text. As the chat history scrolled upward, it became clear there was a time when she loved me even more than I loved her. Reading those initial vows of eternal love now was like a blade stabbing into my heart. It hurt so much I could hardly breathe. I clutched my chest, trying to dull the throbbing ache. Everything came rushing back. I stood there before the gates of our old high school. Serafina and I had been in the same class since we were children, even sharing the same desk. We both attended Jiang City No. 1 middle school for both junior and senior high. I stared dazed at the familiar school buildings before me. It was here that I first discovered I was in love with her. Back then, it was all accidental glances and shared emotions. While preparing for our exams, we wove our feelings together, those tiny thoughts of youth hidden deep in our hearts. But the joy in her eyes was something she couldn't hide at all. Every random word from her felt like a puzzle I had to solve, making the person you like a little angry just to see their reaction. Liam, a familiar voice, snapped me back to reality. I quickly wiped away the tears that were streaming down my face. I turned and recognized my high school homeroom teacher, Mr. Harrison. I thought I had seen wrong, Mr. Harrison said, taking my hand and looking me over. What brought you back here? I just happened to be passing by, I replied warmly. So, I stopped to take a look. He joked, "You came back to reminisce about your youth, didn't you?" "That's it exactly," I admitted. I followed Mr. Harrison to his old office and sat there for a while. The layout was still the same as it had been years ago. Not much had changed, but the people had. "Where's Serafina?" he asked. "Why didn't you two come back together?" Thinking about her unusual temperament back then. Only you could ever take care of her. Mr. Harrison looked at me with a playful, teasing glint in his eyes. "She's away on business," I managed to say. "Are you two still not ready to get married?" "I've been waiting for my wedding candy for a long time." Serafina promised she'd invite me to the wedding. I bit my lip, trying to act as if nothing was wrong. "Soon, sir." Back then, Mr. Harrison was the first person to discover that Serafina and I were in love. But he didn't force us apart. Instead, he shared so many truths and life lessons with us. Serafina and I truly took those words to heart. We didn't officially become a couple until after the college entrance exams. The moment we stepped out of the exam hall, Serafina was interviewed by a reporter. She boldly confessed her love for me right then and there. Despite being a grown boy, I was the one who turned red first. Mr. Harrison had watched us then, looking both helpless and satisfied. At dinner afterward, Serafina had generously promised to invite the entire group to our wedding, covering all costs for food, lodging, and travel. The feelings of the young are so warm and sincere. I can still see her turning back to look at me, smiling brilliantly. Every eye was once fixed on us, full of expectation. But in the end, we have broken our promise to everyone. After saying goodbye to Mr. Harrison, I found myself walking past the music room. I stopped, drawn in by a strange, haunting pull of memory. It was here on my 18th birthday. Serafina wanted to celebrate with me, so she secretly dragged me to this very room. She picked up a guitar and sang a song just for me. "There is someone living in my heart from this day forward." She looked at me throughout the song. She had a slight lisp back then because she was missing a tooth, making her pronunciation a bit off, but it didn't matter. I'm searching for the person in that story, the one who is an inseparable part of me. Your hand holding mine. As the song ended, Serafina broke into a radiant, proud smile. "What do you think? I can sing pretty well, right? I practiced for a really long time. It was just a birthday. I never thought she would go to such lengths for me." My heart overflowed with emotion as I took her hands in mine. Her fingertips were red and sore from the guitar strings. I had no idea how many times she must have practiced just to sing that one song for me. We sat there in silence, just looking at each other. Back then, our faces would flush red with shyness. Now, everything is different. The promises of youth were too light, carried away by the wind. I took out my phone and deleted all our chat records from those 3 years of high school. As I stepped out of the school gates, I nearly fainted and collapsed to the ground. Thankfully, a kind stranger helped me up. My body's reaction was a sharp reminder. I don't have much time left. Forget it. I've spent these last 3 days doing almost everything I wanted to do. Finally, I returned to our old neighborhood. This was the place where I first met Serafina. The weather was growing colder by the minute. I looked up at the gray sky. The first snow of the year would arrive soon. There weren't many people in the community square, just a few residents walking their dogs and some children chasing each other. I stared blankly at the slide in the corner. 2 children were arguing over it, fighting to see who could go down first. The sight immediately pulled me back into the past. Serafina and I were just like those kids when we were young. We were lazy about most things, but when it came to competing over something, we both insisted on being first. Children make their likes and dislikes so obvious. Back then, how old were we? 7? 8? At that age, Serafina and I genuinely couldn't stand each other. Who could have guessed that those 2 bickering children would eventually end up together? Fate is a strange, fickle thing. I slowly walked away, but after only a few steps, I was already out of breath. My strength was failing me. As I turned a corner, someone suddenly collided with me. The impact was so sharp it nearly knocked my coat right off my shoulders. I stumbled, almost falling to the ground. Curiously, the person didn't even stop to utter a single word of apology. I furrowed my brow. I was about to say something to the man who hit me, but I realized he was heading straight for the 2 children. Something was wrong. He was a kidnapper. He moved with terrifying speed, snatching one of the children and attempting to bolt. The other child, showing unexpected bravery, lunged forward, and clung tightly to the man's leg. I don't know where the sudden surge of strength came from, but I sprinted over and struck the man with everything I had. He crashed to the ground. I grabbed the child with both hands and shoved them away. "Run! Get out of here!" I screamed with every ounce of my strength. Seeing the child escape, the kidnapper grew desperate. He delivered a brutal blow to my chest, but I refused to let go. I scrambled up and lunged at him again, gripping his arm with a death hold. The commotion was growing louder. People in the neighborhood were beginning to notice and rush toward us. Realizing he couldn't shake me off and that a crowd was forming, the kidnapper pulled a knife from his jacket. He plunged it into me with a savage force. "Liam," I heard that heartbreaking voice. It was laced with a deep, piercing despair. The screaming and the surrounding chaos began to fade, turning into a dry, hollow echo in my ears. I collapsed onto the freezing ground. My mind began to automatically shut out the movement around me. I could only stare dazed at the haggard, frantic woman who had suddenly appeared before me. The person who was supposed to be abroad on a business trip. Why was she here at this very moment? Serafina tore off her coat and wrapped it around me, pulling me into her arms with a desperate strength. "Liam!" she cried, her eyes locked onto mine as she frantically called my name over and over. "Why is this happening? What is all of this?" a voice whispered through the sobs. She was weeping so hard, she looked like a pear blossom drenched in rain. I looked at her with a sense of confusion. It wasn't just my life force that was fading, it felt as though my mind had become sluggish too. Serafina wanted to hold me tight, yet she seemed terrified of hurting me. I felt something cold on my face. It was her tears. Why was this girl, who usually loved to laugh, crying so ungracefully? Even now, my heart couldn't help but ache for her. She truly knew how to manipulate my feelings, crying because she knew that was the one thing I couldn't stand. What a little liar, I thought. Didn't she say she wouldn't be sad? The sky remained a dull gray. They were waiting for the ambulance, but I was simply waiting for death. I knew that even if they got me to a hospital, I wouldn't survive. But at least in the end, I got to see Serafina one last time. My life held no more regrets. After all, the person before me was the one I had loved with my entire youth. Small snowflakes began to drift down from the sky. The first snow of the year had arrived. I never imagined that before I left, I would actually get to watch the first snow with her. Every year before this, we had watched it together. This would be the last. To depart with the first snow. Serafina and I had shared so many snowy moments, yet we couldn't walk until our hair turned white together. Perhaps she really had imagined a future with me once. The snow grew thicker. Trembling, I reached out my hand to catch a flake. My eyelids grew heavy. "Liam, don't close your eyes. I'm begging you." Serafina held me with a helpless, frantic strength. She had cried until her tears ran dry. I struggled to keep my eyes open, using every last ounce of my strength to wipe a tear from her cheek. She was always more beautiful when she smiled. Serafina gripped my hand tightly, trying to keep me warm. It was a pity. It was useless. "Liam, please," she choked out between sobs. "Wake up and ask me if I'm okay." I felt myself becoming lighter, drifting further and further away from her. I was floating in the air now, looking down at Serafina as she cradled my body, a body that was no longer breathing. The blood stained the snowy ground a vivid, tragic red. The falling snow was stained a bright, tragic crimson. I don't know how long I drifted in that void, but finally, I felt as though I had reached my destination. When I opened my eyes again, I saw a room filled with people. "Liam, you're awake." The person closest to me pulled me into a sob-filled embrace. Slowly, I reached out my arms to hold her back. My throat was parched and raspy. "Mom," I whispered. Looking at the silver hair at her temples, I couldn't hold it back anymore. Tears began to fall. How could I have forgotten? I still had a family here. People who loved me and were waiting for my return. I thought the system would escort me to a new world, but instead, it brought me back to my original one. The moment I re-entered my real body, all my memories flooded back. Years ago, I had accidentally drowned. Although I was rescued, I fell into a vegetative state, unable to wake up. It was then that a small system voice appeared in my head. It told me that if I successfully completed the role of a villainous male supporting character in another world, I would be granted the chance to wake up again. Thinking of my loving parents and my arrogant yet deeply devoted older brother, I couldn't bear to leave them behind in grief. That was why I agreed to the system's deal without a second thought. I was sent to Serafina's world. When I first arrived, I remember my mission clearly. But somehow, over time, I began to forget. Through our daily lives together, I naturally fell in love with her. Fortunately, we were on the same page back then, sharing sweet, cherished moments in our own little world. That was until Ethan appeared. I began to suffer from crippling anxiety. Gradually, even I felt like I was becoming a stranger to myself. My relationship with Serafina deteriorated rapidly. Arguments and cold wars became our daily routine. I struggled to understand the true nature of what was happening. Serafina might have betrayed me, but I knew my own heart. The person I had become wasn't me at all. Then, during another heated argument with her, I accidentally hit my head. That impact jolted my memories of the system back into place. I realized then that everything was dictated by the plot. It was designed to force us into those roles. Knowing the truth was more painful than the ignorance had been. In my original world, I had only been lying in a hospital bed for a few years. But in Serafina's world, I had a family, friends, and had truly lived for over 20 years. I tried to reverse the plot, to fight against destiny, but every attempt ended in failure. As Serafina and I drifted further apart, the system told me the brutal truth. Do not try to change the plot on your own. After all, you're just a supporting character. I was cast as the irrational, villainous supporting lead, being abandoned and giving up. That was the only ending the author had ever intended for me. When Serafina abandoned me once again for Ethan, I knew I couldn't be stubborn any longer. It was time to go. I asked the system in a low voice, "Why are you sending me back?" I already submitted my application to leave that world. I expected the system to assign me a new mission or perhaps hand down a punishment. I never imagined I would not only return to my original world, but truly come back to life. The system didn't answer my question. I wasn't sure if that was a good sign or not. Leaving me with only a lingering silence, the system vanished. Sometimes it feels like it was all just a dream, but the ache in my heart is real. To keep my family from worrying, I've hidden everything. The truth of that other world is simply too surreal to believe. I continue my physical therapy every day. Now, I can walk normally without any issues. Life is back on track. Yet in the quiet of the night, I still find myself remembering Serafina and the beautiful memories of when we first met. I can't help these thoughts, and once, I even let her name slip in front of my brother. Landon teased me immediately. "Are you in love with someone? When are you going to let me meet my future sister-in-law? I want to see which girl managed to wake up my stubborn little brother." "It's nothing," I replied, blocking his questions and refusing to give in. "But I saw you hugging and kissing someone the other day," I countered. "Was that the bride-to-be?" It was Landon's turn to fall silent. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, my brother is getting married. While decorating the wedding suite, I was tasked with blowing up balloons. At first, everyone was working enthusiastically. But as my hands started to ache, I realized everyone around me had disappeared. I felt a surge of annoyance. Was I the only one working? Pop! The sound of a balloon bursting startled me. I realized there was another hard-working soul beside me. I felt a bit more balanced, knowing I wasn't alone. Come to think of it, I know her. She's Landon's college classmate, Snow. She's also a friend of the bride and is serving as a bridesmaid. We've had dinner together several times when I went to visit my brother. Startled, I accidentally popped a balloon myself. Snow looked at me with a dazed, wide-eyed expression, like a child who had made a mistake. Seeing her confused face, I burst out laughing. That laughter broke the awkward tension between us. We sat down and began blowing up balloons together, the atmosphere becoming quite harmonious. After the wedding, I noticed that I was crossing paths with Snow much more frequently. I never realized she had such a strong presence before. It feels like I run into her everywhere now. After a while, I finally noticed what was happening. Snow is pursuing me. Of course, my brother noticed it too. This time, Landon actually acted like a proper older brother and sat me down for a real talk. "Hey kid, what do you really think of Snow?" "She's all right," I said. It was the truth. After spending time with her, I found that Snow is quite wonderful. Compared to my own personality, she doesn't seem to find me boring at all. I've been trying my best to improve my conversational skills, and gradually I've been able to talk with her more freely. We become quite close. I can no longer ignore the affection in her eyes. It's a mix of hesitation and boldness. Even though she is the one pursuing me, she never makes me feel uncomfortable. Our relationship has developed naturally. I suppose you could say we've reached phase 2. Landon hesitated for a moment, then finally asked, "So, have you truly let go of Serafina?" "Serafina? Who's that?" I looked at my brother, genuinely confused. Landon's smile froze. He looked at me with a deeply complex expression, then simply waved his hand. "Never mind. I just want to say that if you still have feelings for someone else, don't mess with Snow. Don't worry about it. Go back to your room." I was still curious. I ran through the names of all the friends I knew. Aside from a senior named Joe, I didn't know anyone else with a name like that. But I'd only met that senior a few times, and besides, I'm into women. There's no way my brother thinks I'm into a male senior, right? I had no idea what he was talking about. The weather was getting colder. I bundled up in my warm clothes and went to meet Snow. "Where should I pick you up?" Snow has such a vibrant personality, always brimming with wonderful ideas. I never feel bored when I'm with her. When Snow saw me, she immediately tucked her hands into the crook of my arm. "Quick, warm up my hands. It's freezing." Her hands were indeed like ice. I watched her intently as she snuggled close. Finally, I reached out and took her hands firmly in mine. Her face turned bright red. Snow took me to a restaurant overlooking the river. She had made a reservation. There was even a violinist playing soft, soothing music. Roses were in full bloom despite the winter chill. It was a different kind of beauty. I turned to look at Snow. She was usually so bold, but now she was blushing furiously. "Liam," before she could continue, I gently placed a hand over her mouth. She stared back at me with wide, confused, and slightly disappointed eyes. I pulled a rose from the arrangement beside us and handed it to her. "Snow, I love you. Can you promise to stay by my side?" I asked the question with absolute sincerity. I've been a relatively dull person since I was a child. I prefer peace and quiet. Compared to other guys my age, I'm not very exciting. I never used to care much about making girls happy. But regardless of all that, when it comes to a confession like this, I knew I should be the one to take the lead. At that exact moment, snowflakes began to fall outside. I turned my head to watch them drift down, then pulled Snow out of the restaurant. As the flakes touched my face, a slight chill set in. Suddenly, I felt my heart race. "What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable?" Seeing me clutch my chest, Snow looked incredibly worried. "I'm fine," I replied. In just a few minutes, the ground had already been blanketed by a thin layer of white. Both my hair and Snow's were covered in snow. I took her hand and leaned in to press a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Snow, let's walk together until our hair turns white with the first snow." Serafina's Diary. The truth behind the script. Entry 1. I really like a boy named Liam. He seems to have so many wonderful, strange ideas in his head. Even when I snatch his toys, he doesn't get angry. Instead, he just looks at me and smiles. He looks at me as if I'm a little kitten. I can't stand being looked at that way, so I just want to find ways to make him lose his temper. Entry 2. Liam probably thinks I'm just a child, so he tells me all these bizarre things. But he doesn't know. I may be small, but I'm not stupid. Liam told me he came here because of his system's request. He said once he completes his mission, he can go home. Back to his original home. I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. But deep down, I think I understood one thing. Liam was eventually going to leave. Entry 3. Back then, I didn't have a clear concept of what leaving meant. I just felt a bit confused. When Liam sat alone in the quiet, I would ask him what he was thinking about. He always told me he missed home. He missed his father and mother. He missed his older brother. I wanted him to have friends here, too. My family and Liam's family are neighbors. I know for a fact he doesn't have an older brother in this world. So, he must be talking about another home. I really like Liam. I liked him from the very first moment I saw him. I gave him all my toys and begged him to take me home with him, back to that other home he talked about. But Liam just shook his head sadly. "I can't take you with me," he said, "and I don't even know when I'll be able to go back myself." His words made me so sad. Entry 5. When I was 5, Liam was in a car accident. He wasn't seriously injured, but he had a head injury. When he woke up, he seemed more energetic than before, but something had changed. He stopped giving me all his toys. Sometimes he even tried to snatch mine. Even though he'd eventually give them back, it felt a bit different. Worst of all, It had been a long time since Liam told me stories about his past. When I finally asked him, "Don't you want to go home now? Don't you miss your big brother?" He just looked at me strangely and asked, "What big brother? Where'd I get a big brother from?" Liam had lost his memory. I was a little sad because I wouldn't get to hear his stories anymore, but deep down, I felt a spark of joy. If he forgot his old home, maybe he would never leave me. Entry 6. After the college entrance exams, Liam and I finally became a couple. I had finally secured the person I loved. Liam is quiet and reserved, while I am the exact opposite. I used to worry he would hate how noisy and boisterous I am, but unexpectedly, we fell deeply for each other. The moment Liam agreed to be mine, I felt like my heart was going to stop. How could someone's casual words touch my soul so deeply? Every single day, I found myself wondering, when will Liam marry me? He took me to do all the things couples do. I didn't want to look back later in life and have any regrets. He sometimes acted a bit lazy about it, but I could see the tips of his ears turn bright red. He didn't want to look embarrassed, but his reaction made my own heart race. That is what true love feels like. I wished I could tell the whole world. Liam belongs to me and me alone. Entry 7. We studied together, entered society together, and decorated our home together. I truly thought we would be happy like this forever. But then Ethan appeared. Liam was incredibly hostile toward Ethan. He made it clear he didn't like him. He told me he didn't want me to have any contact with him ever again. Entry 8. Despite my promises, Liam started becoming incredibly sensitive. Even when I did nothing wrong, he would look at me with suspicion. We began to argue. We began our cold wars. Honestly, I felt so much sorrow. For over 20 years, no one understood Liam better than I did. He didn't say much, and he was naturally reserved, but his kindness toward me was never fake. I knew he didn't mean to act this way. I tried to take him to a doctor, but he resisted me fiercely. Entry 9. Just when I was at my wit's end, Ethan came to see me. After talking with him, I was shocked and deeply unsettled. He spoke of a system. The word wasn't foreign to me. Liam had told me all about it before he lost his memory. He told me how much he missed his real home. I know he has always wanted to go back. That has been Liam's deepest wish since the beginning. In his original world, he has parents and relatives waiting for him. How could I be so selfish? How could I ask him to give up his family for me? If he regained his memory one day, would he blame me for holding him back? Would he be trapped in an agonizing dilemma? That was the last thing I wanted to see. Entry 10. I truly love Liam. I am sorry for being selfish just this once. I know very well what my heart wants. Liam has always been the only one. I try to keep him safe in my world, but now I find myself unconsciously saying words that hurt him. He looks at me with cold, distant eyes. The distance between us grows every day, and his gaze is filled with disappointment. My heart aches as if stabbed by a knife. Entry 11. I took the initiative to find Ethan and agreed to his request. Ethan didn't want to be a puppet controlled by the plot either. We decided to act together, to pretend to follow the script. I only hoped that by doing this, I could help Liam complete his mission so he could finally return home. There is no best of both worlds in this matter. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but it's the only way I could think of. Before we are completely separated, this is the only thing I can do for him. Entry 12. I never dared to imagine that I would be the one to say such cruel, unpleasant things to Liam. He tries to suppress his sadness, but I can see the sheer devastation in his eyes. It is so clear that I love him more than life itself. Yet now I must pretend to be indifferent. The person I love most is ultimately the one I am hurting the most. Final entry. The day finally came when Liam gave up on me. His eyes were heavy with a sorrow I could barely withstand. He began to systematically erase every trace of his existence. He thought that once I was gone, I would never find him again. But he had no idea how deeply I loved him. I have every detail of his life etched into my soul. As our home grew emptier, it felt as though my heart was slowly bleeding out. Liam's health grew weaker by the day. I knew these were the signs that he was preparing to leave this world forever. The agony was so great I couldn't sleep. I only dared to visit him after he had fallen into a deep slumber, slipping away in secret the next morning. I didn't know how much longer I could bear to watch him fade like this. Liam began his final goodbyes to the world. He settled all his affairs and sent me away. He went to the bank to close his accounts. He visited the stray cats and little Julian. He went from our university to our high school, and finally back to the neighborhood where we grew up. Step by step, he retraced his path to where we first met. I never went on that business trip. Instead, I followed him in the shadows. I watched as he discovered the fragments of my true feelings, the secrets I had hidden for him to find. In the past, I would have been overjoyed for him to know how much I loved him. But now, knowing I had hurt him so deeply, those sweet memories felt like a jagged blade twisting in my chest. Watching him grow, Freilier, made my heart ache with a physical pain. And then, I saw him lying there in a pool of blood. For the first time in my life, I truly understood the meaning of despair. Why did such an accident have to happen? I couldn't breathe. I could only cradle him in utter helplessness. The blood stung my eyes, and my voice shook with a terrifying tremor. Liam just looked at me, so calm, so peaceful. He wiped away my tears one last time, and then he slowly closed his eyes. He left me. It has been a year since Liam vanished from my world. All the belongings he gave away, all the things he sold, I have found them and brought them all back. Bit by bit, I have restored our home to exactly how it was before. I spend my days pretending he is still here. But my heart is a hollow ruin. It can never be filled again. By now, Liam should have returned to his original world. He has parents who love and protect him, and an older brother who is conservative but deeply devoted. He should also forget about me. My heart aches so much. Liam didn't know that after he regained his memory and called upon the system, I was listening. I knew then that I was the female lead of this world. I threatened the system with my own life, demanding it return Liam to his former world and erase every memory of his time with me. I had treated him so poorly. It was better he didn't remember this relationship at all. Liam deserved someone better. It was the beginning of the year again when I opened my eyes once more. I had arrived in a strange, new world. In this life, I was attending a friend's wedding. Seeing the couple so happy and beautiful together made me feel a surge of melancholy. So I went to help decorate their wedding suite. Looking at that bridal room, I thought I would never see that familiar silhouette again. I longed for him to pamper me one last time. But then I saw the person beside me. He gave me a sensation that was strangely familiar. My heart thundered in my chest, and I unconsciously asked, "We've had dinner together before, haven't we?" Even though I didn't get the answer I hoped for right away, his voice, his eyes, and that quiet, reserved face told me exactly who he was. I began to pursue him bit by bit. I tried to mirror the way he used to treat me in that other world. The first snow of the season began to fall from the sky. A saying suddenly drifted through my mind. Those who truly love each other will always find their way back to one another in the end. Let's grow old together with the first snow. I looked at the man in front of me and smiled. Liam, you have to promise. The story ends here. This story focuses on the character's inner thoughts and has a rather sad plot, so it might not appeal to everyone. Anyway, if you've listened this far, you've heard the whole story. Please leave a comment to let me know. Thank you for listening.